Perfect. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is the SiteMinder, the change that we made this week to SiteMinder. So previously, prior to the change, as Jimmy has pointed out, essentially what this cycle does, it starts by checking for events in the first property and then gets all the changes and files, but it does not send to SiteMinder. Goes to the next property, gets all the changes, and so on. So the whole process, so here where we start check for events at 12:18, it goes down to 1:44. So you're seeing anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half for the full cycle to pick up everything from every property, and then it sends to SiteMinder. Now during that time,
Shane, have you shared your screen?
No, but that would help, would it not? Can you see now?
It's coming up, looks like. Yeah, there it is.
Unfortunately, you will not be able to see Jimmy's hands showing the screen as they're in the clip. That's okay. Okay, so here, this is what I was saying here. Okay, so essentially what happens is, then during that hour and a half time frame, they're also making those changes. So essentially it's a long time before the next one starts. There's a lot more changes next time. So it almost compounds on top of one another. So what we're seeing is, first one may be an hour delay, second one is an hour and a half, then 2 hours, and so on. So the new change is the cycle is going to start for each property independently. So see how here we have the cycle starting at the same time for each property. As soon as this property's changes are grabbed, it's sent right away. It's not waiting for the other properties to go. So we're running the cycle every 5 minutes. So for properties like this, you can be seeing the updates going every 5 minutes. And we've seen that with most of the hotels out there. So dramatic change. And because of that 5-minute cycle as well, there's not as many changes that they can do in between. Thus the file sizes are slower, or smaller. And we know that smaller files are taken in faster to SiteMinder. You get into things like Red Planet here, where they do a lot of changes, even in a 5-minute span. And what you'll have is the 5-minute cycle starts, and then in the next 5-minute cycle, it says this one is still running. So what we've seen is a cycle start for some of the properties in Red Planet, and it will skip 2 and then go on the 3rd or 4th one. So it's still about a 15 to 20 minute for them. Sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 5. We're seeing anywhere between 5 and 20 for some of the larger properties. But compared to the hour and a half to 2 hours that we were doing before, it's not in that comparison. So this is a huge change, big game changer, right?
And this is something just for the SiteMinder interface, right? So it's maybe one of our faster interfaces now.
It will.
But we're considering it for some of the other interfaces.
We're doing it for all. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
It's a no-brainer. Have you ever seen one of these for 1834 to see if 1834? It'd be interesting to look at one of those if you haven't seen it.
I haven't looked at 1834, but we can look. Then we can get an average time.
Yeah, because then we kind of know for Henry, you could get to 20. Most properties are 5, and 1834, are they at the 20, or are they even shorter? Because that'd be great for them to know that.
I can tell you that scrolling through to find these ones, I didn't find them until I got to Red Planet.
Yeah.
So going through East, going through West, going through Lake, like I'm not finding it until I got to Red Planet.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Even on West, where Susie is, we're still seeing them go every 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So.
Okay. That's cool.
So you're going to see that happen with the rest of them for sure. No doubt. We want to go this route, right?
We want to touch on the resync.
The resync? Well, there should be no need for resync at all anymore with this going on.
Right? Before, when we did the resync, it's adding to the queue.
Yeah, and so what we're doing now is, good point, yeah. So before, if you click the resync button, it would just add another file. It wasn't making it happen any quicker. It was actually making it worse because you're now compounding files upon files upon files. When you click now, if there's already one in process, we're not going to do it. Okay. Right? And with this, I don't see us having to use that resync anymore or minimize it. Like the ultimate goal would not to be use that resync at all if we can have it. So, because the interface should be doing what the interface was meant to do, right? Okay, any questions on that? Or
There's the hero there.
There's did that. Yeah. Okay, next I'm going to talk about the group block modification. Now this, we sent out in our last release that this was coming up. I wanted to give people lots of warning. We put it out in our teaser emails as well. We made 2 changes to the way how cutoff is handled. So if you look here, the John View booking that I have here, the arrival date is February 3rd to February 6th, and our cutoff date is February 3rd. If we look at John View in the current room key, our arrival date is February 3rd, but we see the cutoff date of January 30th. And what this is, even though I have the cutoff date set at 0, room key currently takes into account pre-nights, right? Yeah. And it never should have, but that's just the way it's been. So now, when we go over to the change that we're making, here I have the 4 pre-nights, but it's not taking that into account for the cutoff days. Right. The second change for me is prior to the release, the 0 cutoff days actually did not release the block. It was almost like 0 meant don't release at all. So if we go to one moment. There it is. So you'll have these companies that do their group block hold for the whole season, where they may have, Talk World Discovery would be my example, where they know they're going to get 20 rooms per day, but they don't know the group sizes yet, how many days each group is doing. So they'll put in a group block from May until September, 20 rooms per night at the beginning of the season until they find out what each group is going to do. So prior to this,
wouldn't that be a wholesaler? Wouldn't that be a wholesaler?
Could be as well, but some of our hotels set it up this way. We ran a query, and we found a ton of people doing it this way. Yeah. And they can do it. There's nothing stopping them from doing that, so we gotta, of course, take care of it. So, and a lot of them, what they were doing is they were using a whole block. And up until the point, how room key had always worked, if you left the cutoff days at 0 and you had a whole block, well, we weren't releasing the whole block. Now that we fixed this, on January 19th, it would release the block for the next 5 months, and people are going to be saying, whoa, what happened? So even though it is a bug fix, people have always been used to the way that it works, so that's why I want to really address it with putting it out there a number of times, hoping everyone would see it. So the way, and especially for trainers, if they are going to be doing that, holding a whole block, you could do it in the wholesale area, do it in here. You just want to make sure you're doing 1 day at a time, right? And that way, at the end of the day, if there's any block left, it releases it. End of the day, each day. So it doesn't release the whole block for 5 months. So hopefully enough people read those. We're going to run another query. We've run 3 queries so far, or no, 2 queries over the past year. We're going to run another one to see anyone that has a hold like this, that's using a whole block, contact them and say, read our rules. So
it will also affect the reports too.
It'll affect the reports, it will. So the second thing we did with group cutoff is every single forecast report, inventory calendar, and the group block screen, it turned out to be 13 areas, are now all going to handle group block consistently. You should not see any discrepancies between them. We've been talking for months about the differences between our reports, and most times we say, well, this report is doing this and this report is doing this, so that's why it's different. So no longer are we doing that. We're moving forward with, let's go consistent with the report. So this is phase 1. We have the group blocks consistently reporting on all our forecast reports. What that allows us to do, now that we know that the group block is correct, let's put it into BI. Before, if you said we need it in BI, I couldn't tell you which one to put in. But now, we can choose anyone because they're all consistent. Over the next few months, and I talked about this before, I do want to look at the other things that affect report discrepancies, day use rooms, house accounts with rates, comp rooms and all that. I'll be looking for feedback from all of you guys and, you know, addressing all of these. Any questions on those? Nope, okay. Okay, so we have 2 new reports as promised from last release. So last release we put in the restriction overriding feature. So now we have reports that will show you when it's being used. So under reports, reservations, rate restriction override, the first one I'm going to look at is by booking date. And what this will show, the booking date is obviously January 27th. You can run this for a month time frame as well. It'll show the time that it was done, the res ID, guest name, the room type, the rate that was overridden, arrival date, departure date, and nights. And then here you'll see CTA would be closed to arrival. So here we can see that closed to arrival was indeed overridden. We can also see that closing was also overridden. So if we're overriding 2 restrictions on 1 rate, we're going to show that we did both. Okay? And then we get the totals down at the bottom of how many were done. And the clerk that did it, especially, you know, so this would be a prime example. If I was manager, I'd probably go to Bryn and say, Bryn, you know, you're going a little heavy on the overriding in these areas, right? It's a training tool that they can use and talk to their agents, and also figure out maybe we're not doing the right rate strategy if we're constantly overriding the restrictions. So it's kind of twofold how you can use that.
This was requested by Susie, right?
This was requested by Susie.
And is this going to catch the ones who are like, I guess if they're making a change and it says the rate is closed or something like that? Like, what is the purpose? What was the reasoning behind this report, like, as per Susie's comment?
To show to when they're using the restriction overriding, to know how much it's being used. Because ideally, you don't want people using rate restriction. You want them, if you have a 2-night minimum, you want the front desk agent to sell that as a 2-night stay, right? So the agent says, well, I'm getting pushbacks, let's sell it for 1 night. You want to count how many times that they're using that override and not using the strategy that you laid out, right? So 1, to find out, are they not following it? Or 2, is my strategy wrong that we're doing?
Can we remember that this respect on the opinion too?
The restriction, it does. Yeah, and if the nice thing we did was if you use the restriction override login and the manager logs in, it shows their name instead, which we did. So. The next one is going to be reports, reservations, rate restriction override by arrival date. So this one is really looking at the days that it happened on. And Susie gave me this insight, which I thought was quite brilliant. If you look at this, these are the days that restriction was overused. So see how we had 6 on this day. And the thing she said is, you use this in conjunction with the abandonment reasons report. So you look at the abandonment reasons for the same day, okay? So let's say that we sold out that day, and we used 6 overrides. After the point that we sold out, let's say we turned away 10 people that would have paid the Oxford guarantee rate, the highest rate, but we were sold out now. What that tells you is we shouldn't have overridden, we shouldn't have accepted those rate restrictions. We could have held out, right? So it kind of gives proof that, yes, my strategy was working. We should have stuck to it because we're going to get that phone call the next day to saying, yeah, I'll take the Oxford guarantee rate for 3 nights. So it's using those 2 reports in conjunction. Now, just a side note on that, reservations, abandonment reasons, you'll notice that we have the little arrow here, and I don't have by arrival date yet. It's not ready. And that's okay. Susie knows this, and we're going to have it out in the beta. I think by next week we're going to have it out in the beta build anyway, so she'll start to be able to use it anyways. So that we did the little arrow here, and we've made changes to the by booking date as well. To January 27th. So this is the new report.
Okay. I just couldn't figure out who wrote it.
And I'm going to show you the current report. So here we just have abandonment reasons in the old one because we didn't do by arrival date and by booking date. We just had by booking date. And this is the current report. So the differences that you're going to see, differences you're going to see is we put in the room type and the rate name. We put in the clerk. You'll also notice now that the amounts are filling in. So the last release that we had, notice that some of these are zero, or the current release that we're in, sorry. And what was happening is, in the current release, if you go to new res, and if we were to click cancel right now, no rate would be captured. The only way you can get the rate capture is actually going in, selecting a rate, and clicking book. If you're already overbooked and the agent doesn't have overbooking permission, they can't even get to that on the report. So in hindsight, you look back and say, okay, we should have did that better. So that's what we did on this release. So when you click on new res and you get to this screen, let's say I touch nothing. The little black arrow is beside the 2QNL. That's what you're going to see on the report. And the little black arrow is beside best available rate. That's what you're going to see on the report if you touch nothing. So at the very least in training, if they can get to this point, or at least to the best available rate on the room type that they want. The further they go, the better it's going to be. Okay. But that's where we're at. So we're finding out the dates that they want. We're capturing those dates as well that it's going in for, right? Yeah, so it's much better capture. There's no way that agents are going to remember every time, oh, I need to make it to the book that we're sold out. Why is this guy even going to stay on the phone with me, right? Okay, so the capture is much better on that and the additional fields. And again, it's the same thing of why we're doing, Shane, that equals to turn out.
The turn-away report? I think she's...
It's the turn away report.
Sounds like something.
Yeah, it's regress and denials is what the abandonment is. Yeah. If that's what, I think that's what you mean by it. Yeah. Alrighty. On the report statistics, corporate statistics, and the wholesale statistics, both of them, and it's only on the ones by date range, you'll notice that we have a hide blanks checkbox. So any company that is not producing automatically will not show on this report. However, if you choose your dates, February 1st, February 28th. I'm going to unclick hide blank and click start. Then we're going to see the companies that aren't producing. And why this was a Henry request and why it works out is, you know, especially when you're looking at sales managers' commission sheets and looking at how many companies they have. I have 2 that are producing and you have 20 other accounts that are 0. Is this the accounts or is this the sales manager? It allows you to dig in. I mean, you could look at all the accounts that you have and cross-reference, but it's kind of a pain. So it's nice that they have the option to see this. So because, you know, we didn't want to change it for everyone by default, that's why the check mark is going to be on, so the report will print out like it does now. It's only when they want to see it. So. And you may have noticed, cannot divide by 0, that will go away. And above 6, so. Just trying to help people with math. So. Next is for properties with Shift4, Sage, and Heartland interface. Here I have Hal Johnson, and Hal is in for 2 nights. So the credit limit is $230. Now I don't actually have it authorized, but the authorized transaction is at $203, let's say. So that's how much we took from the credit card. We know that when we extend the stay of a reservation,
Oh my God, like,
we could only take it far, but it's definitely a step in the right direction, right? So we extend the stay, we click book. What's going to happen is
Oh my God.
we're bringing this up. Now this is as far as we went because they still need to make the decision. But it's that you love
That
this
just
thing.
changed it for me.
Really? That SiteFinder thing? Yeah, come on. Yeah, but see, this is why we have these meetings, right? And I'm so glad I'm here. I get to see your reaction. Most time I'm sitting there. Hello. Anyway, so this is the, oh yeah, I need to increase that credit limit, right? Now, properties that have the disable authorization at check-in check from the preferences tab, this won't come up. If the room and tax is on Nate Folio, it won't come up. If they don't have a credit card on file, it won't come up. Oh, and if they reduce the stay, it's not going to come up. It's only when you're adding nights on, right? And we do recognize that this credit limit to authorized transactions is wonky, is the nicest way to say it. And we would love to address it. It's probably an RK2 thing, but here we are. This is a step in the right direction.
Can it auto-calculate that additional night?
Okay, onwards. Well, it does auto-calculate, right? Because when the guest folio credit limit comes up,
Would it?
the credit limit is automatically up.
Okay.
Yeah, it always has.
It always has.
Yeah, without
Right,
authorizing.
right.
So what they had to remember to do was go into, after the credit transaction, just to do it, click post, and then it would authorize for the additional. So at least this way, you know, hopefully they go, oh, right, I got to increase the limit, right? The top voted thing on AHA at the time that we did the planning for this release is our next item. And that is, if you're making a booking for a company, either for a corporate account, a wholesale account, or a group. Where is this going? And when you get to the guest info screen, there's a use address from corporate account. When it's a group, it'll say use address from group account, use address from wholesale account. So when you click that, it'll pull it over. So especially for groups, they just want to make that quick booking. Are we going to start like taking votes on what we think people will be excited for before I do the presentation and see?
Well, I usually make my nose go for
But the
it.
funny thing is,
Here, we're going to put a camera so you can...
I know, I want to see this. But the funny thing is, this got, like, at the time that I did it, it had 10 votes. It has more votes now. So now we can go back to AHA and say, we delivered on this.
Yeah.
And we want people to know that AHA is working, right? And in our next release, I've already looked at the top voted ones. Now, we can't always go with the top voted ones because sometimes we just can't do it, but we want to get near the top of what people want. And we do have to look at which properties are voting and all that, but we want AHA to be a tool that people use. And people are talking on there. They're talking with one another saying, hey, did you try this? They're actually giving other clients suggestions. It's amazing, right? It's like a forum. So
TJ's asking if that address will stay on the profile of the guests. I would assume,
it
yeah.
will. Yeah. Now, it pulls the address in, but let's say you wanted to change it just for this client, you can. And it won't save back to the corporate account, just for this guy.
Well, don't you have to create as a new profile?
Well, no,
Oh,
because
not even.
it's not. It's a new profile anyways. So all it's doing is pulling that address in. It's one-time pull, and that's it. Yeah. We didn't pull the telephone number over because we felt it was still important to get that client's phone number. We didn't pull email over as well because, again, they probably have personal email. So we chose just to do address, zip, city, country. Okay, next is going to be
Why did you guys pull the arms off the chairs?
Because there's no...
You thought it was a good idea.
Okay.
I was sleepwalking one night, I came here and
He's angry.
That's your next topic?
Okay, so want to talk about chaining guest profiles. Okay, so guest profiles across chains. The most important thing for everyone who's setting up properties is if you have a chain that's going to share IDs, you have to turn on share guest IDs, or this won't work. And as well, if you go into system configuration, property preferences, the subscribe for new and updates, you want those two on every property. What it does is it doesn't actually share the profiles across the chain. It actually copies a profile into each one. So what happens is guest ID number 1, Shane McPhail in Oxford Bellingham, will be guest ID number 1, Shane McPhail in all the other ones, but it's really a copy of each one. So what we've had to do, and kind of a whiteboard here, I was going to try doing an example, but let's say for whatever reason we didn't have share guest IDs on, and we had ones across, let's say, 10 of the properties, and Shane McPhail was in 3 of them, and then Barry Johnson was in the 4th one. Interesting letters, I should. So, Barry Johnson. Okay, let's move on. So essentially,
we don't have HR in this office.
So essentially what we had to do was, when you look at, if we had a guest profile that was Shane McPhail as 2, and we wanted to combine these 2, what would end up happening is, if we combined just based on the IDs, Barry would disappear altogether and become a Shane McPhail. So we had to put in a secondary layer. And what it's going to do is, it's going to look at name as well. So what would happen in this case? In property 1, it would merge. Property 2, it would merge. Property 3, it would merge. Property 4, it would not merge, because it wasn't in sync in the first place. The times you would see that is when this was not turned on in the beginning, like we chained a hotel and then realized later, oh, we should have turned that on. So very strong point. If you're doing a chain and they're going to share, have to turn that on and have to do it under the preferences tab. So, okay. That will work effectively only if the guest profiles are merged prior to this release.
Or is it after
this release? After this release, it will only work. What's happening right now, so everyone knows, if I went to Oxford Bend and combined the 2 Shane McPhails, they would still be separate in all the other ones.
Right.
So.
And that's a Henry request, but will work for all chains.
All chains. This will benefit.
Any chain that cares about marketing and slightest is incredible.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They've been like,
Yeah.
it's kind of bad because I think initially in sales, people were like, oh, our profiles are merged.
Merge it the same way, and it's not like you're going to see it across the chain and you're not going to keep going loading, 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 loading. It does what it's supposed to do. Okay, so next let's go to, oh, any questions on that sharing?
If you update a profile on property 1 versus property 2, will that update property 2?
If that update is correct, yeah. And I'll tell you something. Well, you should ask that. Because in the case of this instance where it's SM and Barry here, let's say that you did go back in afterwards and share profiles now with this property.
Mm-hmm.
If you change Shane McPhail's address to 123 Dare Street and save the profile, guess what happens to that? It changes to SM. And again, he disappears. So we address that in this release. But again, it's going to look to...
Did you do the work?
No.
Who was it?
Sri Lanka.
Oh.
Yeah. So again, it's going to look to the ID, it's going to look to the name. If it's not the same, don't touch it.
Okay.
So it's funny, I think over the years when we've had those phone calls, I swear we put this guest in and we're all like, yeah. Now we're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, you probably did.
Sorry. Okay. Next. Any more questions on that? Sorry. All right. Next is City Ledger, small change in here. I shouldn't say small change because you guys get excited about it. I like it. So I got the pay invoice. Would you like to post to multiple? Yes. We're going to choose cash. And we're
I
going to
just wrote this doc yesterday.
500. I was only kidding. So we put in GDS confirmation number, okay, and you can sort by it. Now, the GDS confirmation number, it's not actually attached to the invoice. It's actually attached to the guest on the invoice. So in the case, and if you think about it, most times when they're doing the transfer over to the City Ledger, they are keeping the invoices separate. So that's why we did decide to put in. However, if you did have 3 separate invoices and transfer all 3 onto one, only the top guy's GDS number is going to show. But I just don't see that as the use case. Maybe we'll learn differently afterwards, but that's what we went with. So. And the last one I think you guys all know about, but I just wanted to discuss again, especially for trainers and everyone else, is the EMV. So the debit cards for EMV, the way that they're handled, and we put in a hot fix, I believe, a few weeks ago. Just to know that when we go with EMV, when they put either an Interac card from Canada in or a debit credit card from the US, it doesn't authorize the credit card on check-in. It actually charges the credit card.
Okay.
So when you go to when you click on the used terminal, it's going to go to the used terminal. The clerk at front desk doesn't even need to know what card they're putting in. Based on the one they put in, if it's a credit card, it's going to come back to room key. It's going to go as an authorization. Authorized transactions, you'll see the code, and it will be authorized on the card. If it comes back as debit card, which is Interac, or a debit credit card, it'll post it to the bill, and it will print out the receipt right at that time. So it's actually charging the card. They don't hold authorizations on debit cards. Good to know.
Well, they never do, though.
Yeah, they never do.
They never do.
So,
It's essentially secure cash, is what it is,
yes.
in a weird way, if you think about it.
It's a payment. So because of that, the that token that we get for that debit card, you can't use it again. So we're not saving the token. So it kind of, we put in a new trans subgroup called EMV debit card, and Dave's doc has a full section on all of this. The section that I had, if you put that in, that has all that, please go through that and step by step and make sure that that makes sense. Any questions, let us know. Should be pretty straightforward. But it kind of acts like cash and a credit card in that if I had Mr. McPhail had a reservation with a Visa on file and he came in with his debit card, when we put the debit card in, we're going to charge that debit card and post it as a payment, but we're not going to override the Visa. That's what just like cash would not override that Visa, right? We can't save that token, just can't use it again. It's a one-time use. For that reason as well, you'll notice that reversals cannot be done because, again, we can't use that token again. You have to post them as negatives and have the card right there with it. So one of the things with the Shift4 guys, what will happen if the card both functions? When the guest puts their card into the machine, if it's a credit card and a debit credit card like they have in the US, it will ask them, do you want to do this as a credit or a debit? So again, the terminal is asking them and it's sending us. So it really, and the EMV thing, you know, right now we swipe the card into the MagTech, it goes into room key, we send it to Shift4. The big difference with EMV is when we click use terminal, it goes into the terminal, that goes straight to Shift4. It's really important for you guys in support to know that because if there's issues, that's going to Shift4. It's not going to us, and then Shift4's number. And that's really all I have. There's still some Salesforce tickets I need to go through for the tweaks and defects. So I encourage you to look at the documentation that comes out next week. I'm also going to do the webinar on Tuesday for the clients. But there will still be some more tweaks and defects to come that I don't have ready for today. But yeah, any other questions? Or This is my favorite one. It was awesome to be in the room with you guys. Most times when I'm there, I seriously hear nothing. I'm just like, okay, quick.
Thanks, Shane.
Thank you.
Thanks on the phone.
Thanks, Shane.
Bye, Kimberly.
Why
Bye,
your one
DJ.
takes so long?